Alright, here are my thoughts on the second round. First of all, I just want to say that I absolutely loved the fact that the NBA had a separate day for the second round draft today. It made so many undervalued prospects feel looked at. It gave them a whole nother day to really focus on them, and it made them feel so much important. I absolutely loved it. And if you haven't seen my full review for for last night's first round, go ahead, look at the YouTube, look at Spotify, look at Apple Podcasts. The link is in the bio of the description. Look what I have to say on the first round. It is very, very interesting. But just moving on with the second round, the first couple of picks were really dominated by players that we believed were first caliber players. You had Cal Filipowski going to the Utah Jazz. Really great pick for Utah here. They get a true five-man that is going to be able to now make John Collins either expandable or move him to his natural four position. You have young core in Walker Kessler. They got Isaiah Collier early in the draft. They got Cody Williams. The Jazz now have a pretty young core to go off of. Tyler Smith goes 33 to Milwaukee. Don't really have a lot to say with this pick just because Tyler Smith isn't really efficient in any real specific thing. He's not an incredible shooter. He's not an incredible athlete. He's not an incredible defender. So hopefully he can learn to potentially get proficient in that behind somebody like Chris Middleton or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Kolek and Furphy are kind of in the same boat where they are incredible scorers. They do great at attacking the basket, but they're just not very great athletes. And this, for some reason, isn't updated, so there were a couple of players that are going to different teams here, so if I call out somebody that is going to a different team, I apologize, but I know that Kolek is for sure going to New York, so New York gets them a two-guard. Again, it's going to take a couple of years for him to develop, hopefully with the athletes that New York has with Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby. They just got Mikal Bridges that he can learn to potentially add speed to his arsenal. And same thing with Johnny Furphy, who I believe is going to Indiana on this one. They go ahead, they put him behind guys like Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nemhard, Tyrese Halliburton, a whole width of incredible athletes that hopefully he can go ahead and learn from. Then just moving down, the San Antonio Spurs actually got Juan Nunez, a real true Spanish point guard who is all about a very high Q and playmaking game. Again, no real complaints from this. The only thing that I would have to say is the fact that Juan Nunez, again, isn't very great at shooting the basketball. So if the Spurs are looking for somebody to really come off the pick and roll and be able to create something for themselves outside of Wemby, then they didn't get that this draft. They got both Stephon Castle and now Nunez, two very high IQ playmakers. But you're really relying on Wemby to basically carry the pick and roll. You're basically relying on him getting the ball every single time and making something with the basketball. So you're just going to have to look out with that from them. Then you move on to guys such as Jalen Williams right here. You move on to Cam Christie, Antonio Reeves, who all three are in pretty much the same boat where they are incredible marksman shooters. Cam Christie especially really loved this pick for the Los Angeles Clippers. I think in a couple years, if they're able to develop him, he could be a really great replacement from when James Harden retires, if Paul George is leaving, if Kawhi Leonard continues to have injury problem. If he can just continue to develop the soft spots in his game, if he can become a better defender, if he can add on weight to his frame, he's going to be a very solid shot creator for the Los Angeles Clippers going forward. And Jalen Wells as well. It was a great pick for Memphis. Like I said, the one thing that they needed was wing depth. They needed a 3-and-D guy that was going to be able to come in, and Jalen Wells does that very well. You also had a very interesting archetype in that being the small ball 5 centers. You have Jonathan Mogbo, who was the first pick of the second round, and you also have Adam Bona here going to the 76ers. These guys are going to be super interesting to look out for just simply based on the fact as they have incredible explosive athleticism. They have ability to guard on the perimeter, and they have ability to attack the rim. And Bona himself actually has some decent three-point shooting ability as well. We're just going to have to see on where these teams are going to play them, and if they do play them at center, if they are going to be able to compete with that basically 7-foot size all across the league. After Bona, you had pretty solid playmakers with KJ Simpson and Nikola Drgic going to both Charlotte and Miami. And moving across to the other side of the board, you had San Antonio going with Harrison Ingram, who is basically just flat-out length. So again, like I said in my YouTube video from last night, the San Antonio Spurs are just continually pounding the draft board with incredible length. They got 6'5" Stephon Castle. They get Harrison Ingram now. They have Vassell, Wembanyama, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Shohan. They're really looking to just build one of the most annoying defensive rosters in the league with just the pure length that they have. They have a very, very long wingspan team, which is going to be very interesting to see how it works out. Shout out to the UConn basketball team. They debuted a couple of other guys in this draft. You got Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer both going in. Both guys who are on the little bit of the older side, but I think could actually be very, very experienced veterans to plug into some teams. Cam Spencer especially, I think, could bring on a little bit of flair to that Pistons roster by potentially just being a well-oiled veteran that could plug in right away and could potentially challenge guys like Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham for a starting position. Tristan Newton, don't really understand what Indiana is looking for in him, just simply off the base of they have so many guards. And speaking of having so many guards, Jamal Sheed ends up going to the Toronto Raptors, who just today traded for Davion Mitchell. They have Emmanuel Quickley, so they add another very undersized guard in Jamal Sheed. I love Jamal Sheed. I thought that 45 was incredible value for him. I think that he's an incredible game manager. I just don't think that he's going to get an opportunity to shine. Maybe he'll make some plays in the Summer League. He's definitely going to go down to the G League for a couple of months, so let's see if he can make some noise down there. Maybe he could be somebody like a Sharif Cooper, who is just an incredible playmaker at being undersized, but I just don't see him gaining an opportunity on a Toronto team. It was a very interesting draft pick by them. Quentin Post by the Golden State Warriors. He's also really interesting. He's basically a 7-footer that just is a catch and shoot 7-footer, somebody who just sits on the outside. He doesn't have a lot of movement in him, not a lot of athleticism. He doesn't even really screen and come off of a screen very well. He kind of just sits on the 3-point line, is an incredible 3-point shooter, so we'll see how they'll be able to utilize them. But again, the Warriors going for exactly what their community, what their program, what their culture is, which is just guys that can shoot from the outside. And then finally, I know that we were all going for this, and I'm going to make a separate video on this just so that I can go more in depth on the position that Bronny James is going to be going into and the situation. But the Lakers go ahead and get Bronny James at 55. About 10 picks before that, when we got to around Jamal Sheed, there was actually a rumor going out that his agent was calling NBA teams, telling them not to draft him because he was going to go play pro in Australia. Obviously, I think that was for the headlines, but it got me kind of frustrated. I actually posted on the podcast's X and Twitter account that if they want to do that, then why even apply for this draft? Why even try to do this? Because let's be honest, any position that Bronny James was going to be in, whether he was the number 1 overall pick, whether he was 55, whether he was going to the Pistons, whether he was going to the Pacers, whether he was going to the Lakers, he's signing a 2-way deal. He is going to the G League. I hope that people understand that. No matter how many strings LeBron tries to pull, the Lakers are going to look to develop him, and the development is going to come out of going to the G League. And again, I'm going to go more in depth with him, but I think he's going to a very solid G League program in the South Bay Lakers. I think that they have a lot of great veterans down there that he can definitely learn from, and he can develop his game. So again, Bronny James, it's a solid pick at 55. It's not picking him at 17, so I'm not freaking out about it. It's a second-round player. You could have gone out and got possibly somebody more talented, maybe get a center and then N'Faly Dante or PJ Hall at power forward, but there's really no risk here. And speaking of those two, those are kind of my two biggest guys that did not get drafted, and I was actually really surprised they didn't get drafted. Even in the second round was PJ Hall and N'Faly Dante. Also look out for Isaiah Stevens out of Colorado State to get signed out right away. He is a great, great two-way, a huge bruiser on the defensive end out of Colorado State. And let me know, who out of this second-round class are you really interested to see in the Summer League, in the G League? Who are you interested to see will develop into a potentially solid role player? Who do you think will be the best out of this second-round class? Because in my opinion, it was a pretty solid second-round class when you go into guys like Filipowski, Tyler Smith, Kolek, Furphy. You have Cam Christie, Jamal Sheed. It was a very solid second round, and I was very, very glad to see these players get the attention that they deserve. They play all year long. They sacrifice everything. They work just as hard as guys in the first round, and maybe they do not have the talent that those guys have, but they definitely deserve some attention, and they definitely deserve to have their NBA moment be televised. So let me know what you guys thought about the draft as a whole. Who's your winners? Who's your losers? Again, go ahead and check out the YouTube video that I made last night of my first round review, and this will also be posted. I know it doesn't really matter because you're watching here, but this will also be posted over on the YouTube as well as my second round review. So that's all from me from the draft. It was really an exciting draft. I enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later.